Coming up on today's After News, Vince McMahon fails to block new legal twist in Janel Grant case.
Bryan Danielson talks about how his feelings about Vince have changed.
Sami Zayn supports Olympic boxer following Logan Paul controversy.
And Matt Damon and Ben Affleck making a Hulk Hogan movie.
Wait, I'm Michael Affleck.
And I'm Phil Chambers.
And this is the After News. And we're starting with a bit of conversation about the Vince McMahon and WWE sex trafficking trial. So as usual, this comes with all the regular content warnings. If it's not something you particularly want to listen to or hear about as we go into a bit of detail on this, please feel free to skip on to the next story, or maybe indeed the one after that, because Bryan Danielson will discuss it as well. But we start with Vince McMahon and Janel Grant and their back and forth within the courts at the moment over. Now, I will try and get this right as best as I can, but the court is currently, there's been a stay placed on the case as a result of the federal investigation into Vince McMahon. In the meantime, Janel Grant's legal team has looked into getting a series of medical records from a doctor, which we will name shortly, that then Vince McMahon's legal team attempted to put a block on because the case is currently placed on stay.
Yeah.
Makes sense to you? Like, we try our best with this. I want to immediately put over post-wrestling, Brandon Thurston, WrestleNomics, John Pollock, and everybody that does all the real work on this. Please go and check out their fabulous reporting on this. Because it was there that we took this latest update from. They're the ones doing the work. And WWE, let John Pollock into your press scrums, please. But yes, to take from Post Wrestling, it was Judge Jeffrey Meyer who filed a ruling regarding the attempt by McMahon's legal representation to prevent Grant's legal team from seeking electronic medical records from Dr. Carlon Kolker at the Connecticut-based Peak Wellness Clinic. This is, of course, the wellness clinic we talked about in prior conversations about this that had dealt with famous people in the past.
Yeah.
There had been WWE involvement with this very clinic.
Who prescribed mystery pills without any writing on the bottles.
Indeed. It is worth noting, by the way, that neither Kolker nor Peak Wellness are listed in defendants in the civil suit, and Janel Grant is not suing Dr. Kolker. It was just obviously this request for information. From the Judge Meyer's ruling on whether or not the block could be placed on Grant's team getting these records, quote, Defendant McMahon has filed a motion to enforce the court's stay order, and the court has received and reviewed sealed filings with respect to the motion. Federal district courts do not ordinarily regulate or sit in review of proceedings of state courts, and the court's stay order did not purport to extend to any state court proceedings. Accordingly, the court denies Defendant McMahon's motion to enforce the court's stay order for failure to show that there has been a validation of the court's stay order. So, in other words, to break down the legalese, Janel Grant's legal team are free to go ahead with their requesting of the records from Dr. Kolker and Peak Wellness. This obviously could factor into the civil suit later on down the line when the federal investigation has concluded.
Yeah.
The stay on this lawsuit in line with the federal investigation is due to expire on December 11th, 2024.
Yeah, absolutely. Just an update on what the situation is. Obviously, the federal investigation keeps things a lot quieter than the sort of civil one does. So we won't find out anything about that probably until they are ready to go.
So we'll find out everything.
Yeah. And then that'll be a barrage of things, I imagine, as soon as that trial starts. But yeah, like as always, we'll keep you up to date on anything that comes up with all of this stuff. We will also put all of the usual donations to RAIN at the side or down below, depending on what device you're looking at. If you want to donate to them, they do amazing work supporting victims of sexual abuse online and sort of around the world, but mostly in America. Yeah. But they have like suicide hotlines, and they do loads and loads of work for this. They're a really great company. So yeah, please donate to them if you can. And
you can do so directly with a button on this video.
Yes, you can indeed. But speaking of Vince McMahon, Bryan Danielson has become the latest wrestler to sort of say how complicated these relationships can be when you find out something as big as this from someone that you've known for so long. Now, back in 2020, when did he leave?
Yeah, 2021.
2021. He put out a statement, basically just thanking Vince for everything, and I'll just read through that. And at the time, he said, "Thank you to the big man who I know hates to be acknowledged. I won't say much, but thank you for the conversations, the life lessons about both what to do and what not to do, and the best hug I've ever received. I wish more people could see you how I see you." Now, obviously, his thoughts on this have changed since then. He worked very closely with him for years within WWE, and with all of these things as well, you've got to think about how much Vince McMahon gave all these people throughout the years in terms of the position of their life and the things they were able to do. It's obviously going to be difficult when something as hard as this falls down. You've got to kind of change your opinion on everything. But on this, he was speaking to Gorilla Position, who asked him whether his thoughts had changed about Vince McMahon. And he just said this. I'll just read out the whole quote. He said, "It's been, first and foremost, I want to say that the people who have been hurt are in a way worse position than I am. My empathy goes to them. This is not. There is not a lot I want to say about it, honestly. It's not just the Vince piece, it's also my father-in-law, maybe ex-father-in-law, as far as that kind of stuff goes." Speaking of John Laurinaitis, obviously. You think of somebody in some way, then something happens and it changes. That is always hard. As hard as it may be for me emotionally, it's way worse for the people who have been victimized by people in power. And doesn't really go on to say anything else. He was asked about Brie and Nikki's thoughts on this, but he didn't want to speak about that, obviously, because that's not his thoughts. It's their thoughts, and it's up to them if they want to say anything. Obviously, that their family is embroiled in this far more than anybody else, with the links to John Laurinaitis as well. So it must be really sort of difficult to piece all this together. Yeah,
the usual balanced appraisal you would expect from someone like a Bryan Danielson, or at least what we kind of know of Bryan Danielson outside of pro wrestling. You're right. How much more in all of this Danielson via marriage to Brie is something that often doesn't get discussed. You know, if you recall at the time, Nikki and Brie Garcia were like bold enough and brave enough to put out a statement, you know, supporting their mother and talking about their family during the time, because it was kind of this forgotten chapter of the fact that, you know, John Laurinaitis is named with Vince McMahon and WWE in the lawsuit. And Danielson obviously has that strand to address just as much he does the working relationship with Vince McMahon that so many wrestlers have addressed, and various wrestlers have given different takes on that. And I guess this is Danielson's for now. It was, showing empathy for victims and survivors in the first place is absolutely the stance to take before you think necessarily of the people that you previously had a relationship with. A
lot of wrestlers have fallen down to that mistake.
Indeed, and it's a strange situation for them all to be put in, but I think it's the kind of reflective practice that Bryan would try and live his life doing. He's applied to this very difficult situation, hasn't he? A good egg.
Yes.
We'd like to think, and from one absolutely to another. Sami Zayn. We mentioned Sami Zayn briefly in Friday's news when we went into detail about the tweet that Logan Paul put out about the Olympian Iman Khalif and all the drama and the backlash that she faced. Ugly scenes, obviously, following her victory in the Olympics over the weekend. And we use Sami Zayn as an example of how certain people are required to put forth their beliefs through very subtle ways, whereas Logan Paul was just outright posting misinformation, which was then growing way faster than, what do they say, a lie can travel around the world twice before the truth's got out the front door, all that kind of stuff. Well, Sami Zayn wasn't subtle in his post on X last night when he was congratulating Iman Khalif on her advancement through the Olympic boxing tournament. He said, "Big ups to the Muslim sister Iman Khalif, who advanced in the Olympics today to box for the gold medal after facing a swarm of the most idiotic, bigoted comments I've ever seen an Olympic athlete face. Inshallah, she wins the big one, and the bitch asses online get the help they need." He had logged on, so all of the furore was Thursday night. He did log on Friday morning. He says, log online to find the stupidest idiots in the world that post their feelings. He'd already kind of and then logged back off, and SummerSlam happened and everything like that. But showing just support for Iman Khalif, and as much as a response as you can possibly do. Not we could say this to Logan Paul, but it's not just to Logan Paul, is it? It's to Logan Paul and others like him that immediately raced online off the slimmest slither of information to the point where her opponent on the day, who the name escapes me now, and I apologise for that, then said she felt like she should apologise publicly, and for having anything to do maybe with all of this, and it's not really on her, is it? But Iman Khalif, can't imagine what kind of weekend she experienced in what should be right now one of the most incredible experiences of her life.
I'm pretty sure it'll be a hell of a motivator.
Indeed.
Prove everyone right.
A silver medalist at the very bare minimum, something most of us will never hope to achieve in all of our lives. So Sami Zayn throwing out support to her, as you would expect from someone of what we know of him, at least.
Yeah, absolutely. It's this. The thing about you get one freak athlete and that happens to be a woman, and you end up with all this sort of transphobia surrounding it when you get a Michael Phelps or something that's a freak athlete that's a man, and everyone's just how amazing he is. It's a very different world. But hate breeds hate. Be nice to each other. Everything else that's going on around the UK at the minute with the Islamophobia and the racist riots and things, it's absolutely pathetic. Just take a moment to consider what you're reading online and whether any of this is true or not, and think about the humans behind these things. And
look after people.
Look after people. Be kind.
Yep.
It's not that hard. Anyway, moving over to Hulk Hogan and a movie that Matt Damon and Ben Affleck are planning on making.
It is a movie.
What a turnaround.
It is a movie. Yes.
So they have bought a screenplay called Killing Gorka, which is about, obviously, the Gorka lawsuit between Hulk Hogan and Gorka. That's a good way of describing it.
Put them out of business, ultimately.
Definitely did. Now they've got Gus Van Sant, apparently, as the director, and it's all about the 2013 lawsuit where Gorka put out a sex tape of Hulk Hogan, and then Hogan sued them, saying that it was filmed not consensually, and then put out against his will. He ended up getting 115 million in compensation and 25 million in punitive damages, which was enough to completely bankrupt Gorka, and they ended up settling for 31 million, and Gorka went into bankruptcy and ended up getting sold and moved on. But it also happens to be the sex tape where Hogan said the N-word about a guy that his daughter was dating, and everything came out about it, that he's just a massive racist. But there is going to be a movie made by Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, which is kind of a mad world.
Yeah, it was sort of insane story after insane story as it was happening, wasn't it? And then I think, like, if you look at the sort of the various composite pieces, Gorka at the time, such an enormous online presence, so that in itself had brand value. Hulk Hogan, like whether we like it or not, like an American mainstream institution, kind of everything that was, and to some extent still is, professional wrestling could be seen through the prism of Hulk Hogan. So the story at the time was massive, and then obviously the comments that ultimately Hogan, I guess, compromised on allowing to be released to the world as part of the tape, seeing the light of day, which was so integral to the lawsuit. He was, willing for that to be out there, and then face the consequences if he ever really did, because he finds himself back in the public sphere now. We saw him just recently at the Republican National Convention going to bat for Donald Trump. He managed to sort of gradually reappear in WWE after initially being lifted out of the Hall of Fame and all the archive footage and the like. Tends to be that some of these so-called cancellations and punishments almost don't stick. Maybe some of that stuff that people worry about isn't real. The story itself does, if nothing else, feel cinematic. You wonder how it will be handled by those within the entertainment world when speaking of an entertainment outlet and an entertainer in Hogan. Be very interesting. Like, we all lived through the real story. There's a very detailed Netflix documentary on it. We within wrestling kind of caught our end of it. That we're very interested to see what version of it makes the big screen. Yeah, absolutely, and how this is presented. They've got the talent involved in terms of like Matt Damon and Ben Affleck being the producers and Gus Van Sant as the director and stuff. It's like it's set up to do well. Casting will be fascinating. But that's exactly what I was just gonna say. I'm gonna be fascinated to see who gets to play Hulk Hogan in this. But obviously, let us know down in the comments below. Who would you like to see play Hulk Hogan? This version of Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan on trial. Who would you want to play that? We're going to switch gears slightly before we wrap this video. Normally we just hoy plugs at you. And we're going to do that again, but albeit with a nicer tone. Friend and fan of the channel, Marcel Laviolette, shared online. Those might have seen us sharing it or Marcel sharing it himself. The terrible damage that was done to his childhood home following the events of Hurricane Beryl. He put a GoFundMe online, and like I say, we shared that, and you are very welcome to donate to that direct. But we thought it might be nice to do something special for Marcel, didn't we? And that's going to happen this Friday. Yeah, absolutely. We're doing a dual live stream that's hopefully going to be on both this channel and the What Culture Wrestling podcast channel, which you can also go and subscribe to. It's going to be broadcast on both of those, and 100% of all of the donations are going to go to Marcel's GoFundMe. We're going to set up a different link that isn't through YouTube, because YouTube takes a 40% cut. So we're going to try and have a different link that you can still do and still interact with us, still super chat in a way. And we're also going to sort of match any donations up to £300 ourselves. So we're going to put £300 on that at the end of it. Hold on, I assume we'll hit £300. It's going to start at 2 p.m. on Friday UK time, so that's 9 a.m. Eastern. So it's early, but hopefully you'll be able to join us. And we're going to just go for as long as we see. There'll be loads. I don't know. We're probably going to end up going about 3 hours. I imagine. We'll hold a quiz in, something like that. We'll have some fun things. Get your suggestions as to things we can do. We can always watch a match, do a watch along, or do some quizzes, or
anything really. We are up for anything so long as it all helps feed Marcel's GoFundMe.
Yeah.
'Cause, yeah.
Marcel culture, we've called it. It'll be in the
Marcel
wrestle
culture.
culture spot, so there'll be all the usual reviews and previews of the week and the stuff to come. It'll be just ahead of Roman Reigns' massive return to SmackDown.
Yep.
This time last week there was the breaking news of the Britt Baker MJF fight, so we'll try and catch any Friday lunchtime news that we can bring into the record. Should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, so yeah, join us then.
And I mean, Phil, like obviously they can find that link probably somewhere on YouTube, but like in and around that link, there's probably other videos they can watch. Would you say?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, maybe
like,
one.
Almost like you could go on a journey, a YouTube journey, if you will, right here. Goodbye.